How do you stay safe as a female solo traveler? Here are my thoughts. Welcome to the How to Travel Full-Time podcast. I'm your host, Heather Markell. If you're dreaming of full-time travel or moving abroad, but stuck at the emotional, financial, and logistical challenges, this podcast is for you. I'll help you trade overwhelm for information that gets you from down and stuck to up and going. You can dream about the travel lifestyle, or you can live the travel lifestyle. If you're ready to live it, then let's jump in together. This episode comes with a free guide. Make sure to check the show notes to get yours. My intention in this episode is to educate you. There are definite risks when you travel. You should know what those are and do your best to prepare. So this episode will be an honest look at what to expect. If you plan to travel full-time as a female solo traveler, one of many things on your mind, no doubt, is how do you stay safe? While the question, of course, is relevant for men too, I find that women have different safety concerns, and traveling alone can feel a bit daunting, especially if you want to go certain places in the world that are less familiar, and you might read news that scares you about some places. Speaking of that news, I will say it's worth taking the information you read with a grain of salt. Of course, you should be prudent about not going places while a war is going on and listening carefully. However, in my experience, you'll find that the reality of a place is very different than what you read about it. Over and over, I have found such wonderful people in every country I've gone to. Now, that's not to say that everyone is lovely, but the great people outweigh the few people you may meet who aren't so nice. Also, remember that the people of a country are not the same as the government of a country. I think it's kind of a frequent experience that the people of a country don't like their government. So you may find that you have that in common as you travel the world. And some of the safety warnings that you may come across, you have to remember that your government may have something going on with the country that may influence the ranking they give it. So speaking of those sites, one of them, if you're American, is going to be the travel.state.gov website. I'll put that in the show notes as well. Whatever country you're from, there's probably a similar type of travel advisory website, and you should consult it. This website will, by country, let you know if there are any big things going on, like a war, or terrorism, or kidnapping, crime, etc. And at least the US website gives a ranking. So, for example, a level 1 means it's pretty safe and you can exercise normal precautions. And as the numbers go up, they'll advise you to perhaps avoid certain cities, and that's an important distinction, which I'm glad that more recently has happened. It's not the whole country that's a problem, but there are certain cities to watch out for that have more known problems. And then other rankings go up all the way to a do not travel advisory. And at least on the US government website, you can provide your email address and approximate dates of travel, and you'll be added to the local US embassy's email list for the relevant country you're going to, so you can stay apprised of things as you're traveling. So do consult your government's travel website for this information, and also do your research. This is really an individual experience, and you need to know your own comfort level here. If talk of any danger at all makes you not want to go to a place, then take that into account as you choose where to go. I know all sorts of travelers, ones that are extremely cautious and won't go near a place that has problems going on, and I know others that are more risk tolerant, even than I am, and will literally fly into the face of danger. So again, this is a very individual experience. I can't tell you what to do other than make sure that you do your research carefully when you're choosing destinations and then assess your comfort level. Wherever you go in the world, always have someone that you can check in with. That could be a friend, that could be a parent, that could be a loved one, but always have someone that at least knows your next destination, and make sure you let them know you arrived safely and check in with them weekly or so just to let them know you're doing okay. Also, if you're going to use Uber anywhere in the world, their app has a feature where you can let up to 5 people know about every trip you take. Various apps like Uber have safety features, and I'd strongly suggest you make use of them. With Uber, it lets you both have that 5 people that get sent a message about your ride, and they can follow along from their cell phone. Uber also offers a PIN feature. So when you meet your car, you have to tell the driver a PIN number, and that's how you can both make sure that you've gotten the right driver and they've gotten the right passenger. So using features like this can really enhance a feeling of safety. The next thing I suggest you do is, as soon as you arrive wherever it is you're going, when you check in, whether that's a hotel where you have a concierge or an Airbnb where you have a host or you're staying with a friend, ask them if it's safe for you to return home alone after dark. My rule of thumb is that if there's any hesitation after that question, or they have to think about it, I just take that as a no. So I'm very cautious that way. But again, this is going to be up to you. But if they say it's not safe for you to return home alone after dark, please listen and don't do that. The other question to ask that person is, are there any dangerous areas you should avoid? Every city has them, by the way. So if you're sitting, listening to this episode, wherever you are in the world, at home, or the place that you consider home, and you haven't started traveling yet, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I could never even think of going to blank destination because it's so dangerous. Well, guess what? Your city has dangerous areas too. It's just that you know exactly where they are, and you don't go there, so you feel like you're safe. And that's the exact same experience you can expect to have when you go and stay a period of time in another city somewhere else in the world. It takes a few days or a week or so, but then you kind of know your way around and you know where to avoid, and you avoid it. So again, if someone tells you to avoid certain areas, please avoid them. You know, there may be a great photo opportunity there or something else that you're curious about, but don't go places that you're told are dangerous, especially not by yourself. Now, some places, for example, South Africa, they have townships. Townships are known to be extremely dangerous, and you should never go there by yourself. However, there are tours that go to some of the townships. So in a tour, you might consider doing that. But again, be cautious. Do your research and avoid going alone into dangerous areas. Next thing, drinking. Whether or not you're a social drinker, a heavy drinker, a light drinker, I suggest you be cautious about drinking alone. If I'm in a city I don't know, or a country where I don't speak the language, or I'm trying to be extra safe, I'm not going to drink by myself because, look, depending on your level of tolerance, 1 or 2 drinks could leave you with lower inhibitions, or, a little bit of a cloudy judgment, and you don't want to get into a situation where you need your judgment, and that ends up badly. So maybe you get a bottle of wine for your room and you have it there. But generally speaking, I'd suggest you just avoid drinking alcohol if you're eating out of your home by yourself, especially at night. Another way to make sure that you're being safe is that when you need cash, make sure you're using an ATM in a safe area or that feels safe. You might even go into a bank and get your money there. So getting the cash out of the machine inside the bank so there are fewer people seeing you get the cash and where you put it on your person. Also, it's good not to carry large amounts of cash with you. And of course, avoid flaunting any jewelry or fancy things wherever you are. that could attract unwanted attention. Now, your biggest strength in terms of staying safe, and I can't underline this enough, is your intuition. Always listen to that. Before I started traveling full-time, I would kind of doubt my intuition and question it, but I have learned to just listen. And that means you might be talking to someone that on the surface looks really nice, and there's no reason that you could understand why you're talking to this person, and yet every fiber of your being is saying, run, get away from this person. So if that happens to you, get out, run away. Just listen to that vibe that you're feeling. I'll give you an example. Now, I don't like to mention the countries where my bad experiences happened because this is one incident and it could have happened anywhere in the world, and it's certainly not a reason to avoid an entire country. But one experience I had, I was staying at a youth hostel, and right from the first evening, the owner there offered me a glass of wine. I had the glass and he seemed to want me to drink more, but I didn't feel comfortable. So I just had that one glass a night. I think I was there for 5 or so nights, and this experience is probably what taught me to never doubt my intuition again. So there was something in my body saying to be wary of this guy. And again, I had the one drink and I'd go off to sleep. But one of the evenings I was there, he invited me to have dinner with him and someone else that worked there. So, everyone there was really nice to me, and I thought, okay, well, there's 3 of us, so I should be safe. So we had dinner together, and it was in the lobby of the hostel in the common area. So there's other people around, and we shared a bottle of wine, and I began thinking maybe my intuition had been wrong. After dinner, we decided to go literally next door. There was a bar, and we decided we'd have a drink there together. And I'm thinking, okay, well, I've got 2 men to walk me back to my hostel safely, so it's all good. So I went. And when we get back to the hostel, I'm a little tipsy, but I still have some of my wits about me. And when we get to the door of my room, and that 3rd person that works at the hotel, or the hostel rather, quickly wishes us a good night and literally runs away, I realize I'm in trouble. The hostel owner starts kissing me and making it clear he wants to come in my room. I'm at this point terrified. But luckily, he was about my height, and I'm not terribly tall, and very skinny. And I was able to push him away and get into my room, and thank God I locked the door. And I say that because I got ready for bed, and I was like shaking. I was terrified, and I was kind of sleeping with one eye open. And actually, I wasn't to sleep yet when roughly, I'd say 30 minutes later, someone started trying to get in my room. I heard the door handle turning, and thank God the door was locked, so we didn't get in. That experience could have turned out very differently, and it taught me to believe and rely and trust 100% my intuition when it advises me to stay away from someone like that. And I share this story with you not to scare you, but so you know these things can happen and just how important relying on your intuition is. On that note, make sure you learn the rules of the local dating culture, because dating may be very different in other countries than it is where you're from. I'm only speaking from the standpoint that I can, which is of a woman dating a man in other cultures. And there are actions that we can take as women that are normal or perceived a certain way. And certain countries, if you have dinner alone with a man, it could suggest you're interested in him. So just be aware of the signals that you're giving. And if you're interested in that guy, wonderful. Then, do what you want to do. But if you're not sexually interested in a man or you don't want to date him, just make sure you understand what impressions you're giving if you accept a meal alone with a man, a drink alone with a man, and things like that. So you don't find yourself in a situation that could become very uncomfortable. My final piece of advice for this podcast episode is avoid quiet places. If you're in a city that you don't know well and it's evening and you have the choice of going down, say, a two-way street with lots of traffic and people, or a quiet one-way street with no stores and nobody seems to be around, obviously go for the one with the more people and the more cars. Now, here's another example for you, and this one was in broad daylight. So I'm in this foreign city, middle of the afternoon, and I was wandering around with my Google Maps, and I saw this thing called a meditation point, which sounded wonderful. To get there, I had to go through kind of like a boardwalk area and then walk towards a point farther out. And as I was walking there, it was like kind of sudden, right? I had gone from this kind of central area on the boardwalk where there were a lot of people, and suddenly I start noticing there's hardly anyone around me. And in fact, the only people I could see ahead of me, rather far in the distance, were two men. And I started having a bad feeling. So, cue the intuition and listening this time, I just immediately turned back around and decided to go back to where there were more people. Unfortunately, as I walked back to that area, a man rode up to me on a bike. He was overwhelmingly friendly, like so friendly I didn't know what to do, and he grabbed my arm, which I guess was for balance, and started kissing my cheeks, and I was completely just totally thrown off guard. And then he looked at me with this big, gross smile, and he said, "Sex?" That was another one. I have to say that really, I was scared and I was disgusted. I said no, and I tried to pull my arm out of his hand, but he tightened his grasp on me and he wouldn't let go. So I took a deep breath and I ripped my hand away from him very forcefully, and I turned away and I walked very calmly and quickly away from him, and I didn't look back. Getting goosebumps as I'm telling you this. So I think there was a combination of my claiming my power and having full confidence that he was not going to follow me or, do anything to me. And I just went. And I was quickly back in the area where there were people, which is one of the reasons he wasn't able to get to me. And he definitely did circle nearby me once or twice, and then he bicycled off into the unknown. Pretty crappy experience. Now again, I'm sharing this with you not to scare you, but simply to tell you it's really important to trust your intuition and not go places by yourself that are quiet, even in the middle of the day like that, because you just don't want to get into a situation like I just mentioned. So if you're planning to travel solo as a female traveler, it is definitely worth doing some research and understanding that yes, things do happen. However, if you're smart and you travel safely and you follow local guidelines and behave safely, you should be fine. And solo travel has so many amazing benefits and such a wealth of personal growth and ability to meet wonderful people around the world. I have loved my experiences, and the ones that I mentioned that weren't as good have simply made me more confident in my own strength, my own resourcefulness, and increased my trust in my intuition. Remember, I have a free guide with some more tips to help you if you are planning to travel solo as a female solo traveler. Check out the show notes for the URL to download your copy, and I'll talk to you next week. Thanks so much for listening to the How to Travel Full-Time podcast. If you loved it, please leave a review and let us know. Make sure to subscribe to get the latest episodes. Check out the show notes for important resources related to this episode, and come visit us at travellifestylecoach.com to learn more great information. If you're ready to get started with the lifestyle, go to moneyfortravelbootcamp.com, where you can learn all the strategies to afford this amazing lifestyle. Talk to you next week.